Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com, your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook podcast at offthehooksports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now.
Well, look at this undefeated Cooper Mays right here, 1-0 with the Vols, and we want to talk to him about the opener against Ball State. We also want to take a look at Pitt, as that should be a great matchup. He's Cooper Mays. I'm Dave Hooker. This is brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. How about over 50 years? It's about integrity. City Heating and Air Conditioning. So we're going to get to the Ball State game. How about right now? Remind you to please press that subscribe and like button, and the notification so that you know when we get a chance to visit with Cooper each and every week. So, Cooper, how are you, sir? You're 1-0. Great job.
Undefeated, right? The
Good.
king. I'm good. Yeah. As long as we win, we're good.
So, going into the game, I did pick. I think I told you 56-16. I'm terrible at predictions, but I just got this really strong feeling from talking to you and Jacob throughout the offseason that everybody's head was on really straight. How confident were you heading into that game? And then we'll get to the game.
Yeah, I would say I was very confident going into the game. We just got a lot of weapons, really. So it's hard to compare unless, you're more probably got a little bit better in the back end. So if you don't have a high chance of covering our guys, you don't have a high chance of winning, basically.
Yeah. And I like the way that you guys came out. And some people forget that you were a good running football team last year, but everybody wants to talk about throwing it around. I like the way you guys came out and showed a really strong ground presence from the get. Was that part of the goal?
Yeah. Well, they were running drop 8 defense. So when they were trying to keep everything kind of in front of them, and whenever you do that, they leave big holes open in the run game. So anytime you're getting, 5-man boxes where we can put 5-on-5, plus you got tight ends fitting in run game. I mean, you're going to get, you're not going to have runs that hit for maybe 60 or 50 or 80, but you're going to get a good, 10 or 12 if you block it correctly, no doubt.
It's a great point. So they drop 8. They wanted to keep everything in front of them. Is that something you're used to? Is that something you saw a lot last year before you and I started talking?
Kind of what I've probably said a little bit on here before. Like teams like, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Floridas, like the big time games that you're going to get where they're comfortable with their defenses. They're not going to shift their defense that much for you or bend it. But teams, you play early in the year that kind of want to come in here and shock the world a little bit. They'll try to do some different stuff just to kind of keep you on, just different pages. It's hard to adjust on the run for some people. So, you study one thing all week and then they come out with something completely different. They're kind of hoping that they can shock you a little bit and maybe pull out some quick wins early in the game.
So speaking of quick, so their first play of the game, they run a reverse flea flicker. So I've always wondered, as an offensive player, are you even really ready at that point when something goes awry on the very first play of the game? Or are you just like, hey, we got to go now?
Yeah. Well, I was kind of on the sidelines getting everybody hyped up, kind of, in people's face, and then I just hear everybody go crazy, and I was like, here we go. It's pretty shocking usually on the first play. You don't see that very much, but you got to be ready for anything in this offense.
So that's true. So you knew by the sound kind of the crowd that it was something had happened pretty significant, even if you didn't see it.
Yeah, well, if you're on the sideline, you're usually with your coaches and your position group, kind of going over adjustments and everything, getting kind of ready for the next drive. And you can either have it two ways. You'll know if a big play happens. You can either you'll be kind of done with your adjustments and you'll be kind of relaxing over there, and you can look up at the jumbotron. You'll see the game. But usually, if the crowd, like if it goes from being like normal sound to like the crowd erupting, like it's either like just a turnover or just probably like a huge sack or a big hit or something. But more often than not, it's going to be a turnover. So that's when you kind of just jump off the seat, grab your helmet, and just run to see what happened, and then kind of just figure it out from there.
Almost like a Pavlovian thing. You hear the sound and you're gone. So for over 50 years, City Heating and Air Conditioning has provided East Tennesseans with honest, dependable heating and cooling services. It's about integrity, that City Heating and Air Conditioning. So Coop, Darnell Wright kind of won maybe an Oscar award there. What he's flailing around after a questionable hit. Your thoughts on that old play, which was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, kind of when you're when you're taught from the beginning of football, if you can affect the way the game's played, then in a positive way, then you try to do it. And you know, on the other side of it, if you affect the game the way the game is played in a negative way, it's a bad deal. So that was kind of an example of somebody on the defense affecting the way that the game was played. I think it would have been like 4th and 1, and we would have been in our own territory, and then it ended up being a touchdown that drive because he threw a punch for whatever the open hand, whatever you want to call it. But you know stuff like that is big time, and it's stuff that kind of usually goes unnoticed. I don't think this one went as unnoticed. I think it was pretty popular, but any way you can get a first down at 15 yards, you got to take it.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So, all right, let's move forward. That was a Thursday game, and you have an extra couple of days to prepare for Pitt and to rest up. I know Ball State's not toughest opponent in the world, but still, it's a football game. You could use a couple of days. How much does the extra days help?
Oh, I loved it personally. My favorite game is a Thursday game, so anytime you can steal an extra few days of recovery throughout the season, that's huge. It's like invaluable. You can't even imagine how nice a weekend like this is.
Yeah, pretty strong. So, okay, well, let's talk about Pitt. So, and your thoughts on those guys and how good they are, how big of a challenge this is going on the road.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big challenge personally. They're known for having a physical front seven. Disrupt the offense, get back in the backfield, tackles for loss, sacks. They kind of that's what they kind of put their pride into as a team. So I think it'll be a big test for us. See kind of where we are as a football team and how we're gonna play for the rest of the season. We kind of got out early a little bit, maybe third quarter ish, and they had a dogfight all the way down to the last second kind of thing. So it'll be a really big test for us, and going to an away game, so hostile environment. I'm pretty excited for the challenge.
And speaking of that, how much does it help your body? We talked about the off days. And I want to get back to Pitt, but just essentially not having to play the whole game as you didn't have to against Ball State. How much does that help?
I mean, you can look at it either way. I think what more what I was thinking was they've had the chance to go the distance kind of. If you look at like UFC fighters, like fighters that have been in 5-round fights and have done all 5 are notoriously better than fighters who haven't traveled the distance all the way. So it kind of tests your will a little bit as a man. You kind of got to swim in the deep water and tread water. So you got to see who will float and who's going to sink.
Well, give me some more thoughts on Pitt and their front, because I think most people think they do have a pretty good defensive front. And what did you see out of them last year? Because it's pretty much a similar group, same group almost. It comes back this year, right?
Yeah, right. They've got good pass rushers at every level, and they may not be the biggest front, but they're guys that play really hard, and they'll kind of make it really difficult for you to block them. They'll make it a pain to block them. They're not going to sit there and just like throw you on your back, but you got to be really cautious about how you approach them because they will make you miss. And then another thing is they've got really good blitz packages, so they've got a lot of fronts that are hard to pick up because they've got so many people up there, and you don't know exactly who's coming and who's dropping out in coverage. So you just got to be a really good football player and be on your feet and know exactly where you're going to be at all times.
I'm sure they knew something about Josh Heupel's offense when you guys played them last year. I mean, they had previous tape, but really seeing it up close. If you can kind of take me back, how did they defend you guys last year?
Um, they ran they ran a four down front. I think a big thing what they were doing is they were trying to pressure the quarterback, and fit pretty heavy in the run game with their backers. But they're a really good team. They, like you said, they've seen Heupel's offense for years and years, so it wasn't much for them to adjust because they've already been facing UCF while Heupel was there for years previous, and they've always been a good test for Heupel, and especially then when they were at UCF. So yeah, they've got their own plan, and we got ours, and we'll see who wins on that day.
So do you think there's much adjustment on their end? I mean, or do you think they come out with kind of the same approach?
Yeah, they did win last year, so I would think that they would have to come out with the same approach. If it ain't broke, you don't fix it. So we got to prove that it's broken before they have to fix it.
In terms of poise in that Ball State game, I just really thought reading body language that you guys looked incredibly comfortable in your own skin, if I can use that term. Um, how much more composed do you feel like you guys were as opposed to just a year heading into the opener with a new coach?
Yeah, I would say a lot more comfortable, especially for me. But I think as a offense as a whole, I think last year was, anytime you're doing something new, especially something like this, it can be a little bit chaotic. But when you can slow it down and kind of really put things into, really where it needs to be at the right speed, then it kind of slows down for you and becomes more efficient. So that's really what I would say. I think we look more efficient.
And then I specifically to that question, the composure I thought of Hendon Hooker. I mean, he looked like a guy that's a 5, 6 year starter in the NFL. I mean, that he just looked very comfortable in his body language. How would you describe his demeanor in the huddle and just around you guys on the sideline?
Yeah. One thing I would say is very mature. Like you said, he looks like he's been in the NFL, but he's a guy that's very experienced in college football. He's been here for a long time. He's an older guy and he has a lot of experience. So anytime somebody like that brings that much, experience and time to the table, then you're going to follow them, especially when they carry themselves the right way. So I would say maturity is the one thing that I saw out of him, probably.
Cooper, how much is because fans want to say a revenge game, but when you play a team that beat you the year before, how much motivation is that?
I guess it's different for every person. I don't really feed into a lot of stuff that a lot of people probably get their motivation from, but I'm out here to get my job done at the highest task, like the highest rate possible. So I'm going in there with the same mindset every time, and that's just to win the football game. I don't think about last year or the next year, whatever. I try to stay where my feet are, man. That's probably what I think is all I can say about it.
Stay where my feet are. By the way, I've stole that phrase. That's I've taken that as well. I'm using that on a day-to-day basis. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's really, hey, it'll fix a lot of your problems. You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly right. So, um, this is kind of out in left field, but you and I were talking that your family is still close friends with the Shuler family and Heath and Navy and Navy running out there at the end of the game. I know the game was out of hand. I know that it was done. It was decided, but that was really super cool. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely looked out there and saw him out there, and I was like, I was just thinking, how proud his parents must be, because we've grown up together. I've known, we've been hanging out with the Schulers since I could barely even walk, since I was a baby. So, you know, just being able to see like how far you come, I can't imagine what our parents must think seeing us, wrestling on the ground as toddlers to now we're playing in Neyland Stadium. So I'm sure it's a crazy experience. I'm sure they're very proud of him.
So you guys, if you can just kind of discuss that relationship between the two families, because people can separate over the years, but why do you think the Mays family and the Shuler family has stayed so close?
Um, just probably just common interests. You know what I'm saying? If you and just the common lifestyles that we have. I mean, he went from Heath and Kevin played together, so they were really good friends, and then both of our moms were really good friends too. So when they had kids, we were the same age. So it just everything kind of just lined up that we were in the common areas. So my mom's kept up with Nicole, and then Kevin's kept up with Heath, and then it's just kind of led us back to some of the same places throughout time.
Yeah. And so do you? He's a former congressman. Do you talk politics with him, or do you just set that off to the side?
No, I mean maybe maybe my dad does. I don't talk about politics to anybody personally, but I don't know. I'm sure they do. I'm sure it's come up before.
It's probably that's probably a good idea. Just leave politics out of it. It's probably a strong idea. Even though, even when you agree, we can always find something we disagree about in politics. So, heading into
Always.
yes, heading into a regular week, a Monday through Friday type of week, or a Sunday through Saturday, whatever you want to call it. Um, it is it nice to get in that sort of rhythm? I know you said you like Thursday games, but now with class and that sort of thing, are you looking forward to getting into a week to week rhythm?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm really just down for anything. It doesn't matter to me, but yeah, it can be whatever. I personally I would like if I could play on Thursday every week, I would play on Thursday every week. But you beggars can't be choosers, I guess.
That's true. All right. Well, congratulations on the opener. I want to ask you one last question as you look back on it. Um, what could you guys have done better, if anything, as the starting five, or were you pretty pleased? I know there's always things you can improve upon.
Yeah, I would say just probably overall execution. It's really hard when you get like the first game of the season doing the tempo. There's nothing really that can prepare you for like the way you're gonna feel, like how tired you're gonna be. So I can understand a little bit of stuff, but you got probably every first game you're gonna just want for a little bit better execution. But I'm pleased with how we played, but it's always gonna be able to be better. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Cooper Mays, again, he is fantastic to join us. Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Cooper, good luck against Pitt. Tennessee is certainly excited for what you guys produced on Thursday. I know you've got big goals ahead, so we will talk to you next week, buddy. Good luck.